Hey everyone, I'm the Canadian lad, and today's video is about Captain America, who holds a very special place in my heart. A lot of people used to think Steve Rogers is just a man without his shield, but have you noticed most of the best parts of his life being a superhero had nothing to do with his shield? For example, in Avengers Age of Ultron, he threw an 800-pound motorcycle over his head for about 30 feet distance to take out the bad guys. In Winter Soldier, he jumped out of an airplane without a parachute. In Avengers, he destroys a punching bag just by punching it. And don't forget, in Civil War, he holds down a helicopter with his bare hands. All of this goes to show powers are only as useful as the soldier who wields them. In this video, I'm gonna explain how Marvel gave Captain America the best possible ending. By the end of it, you'll love his character arc more so than ever. So without any further ado, let's begin. Beginning with his origin story and his utmost desire to fight evil despite being so incapable and small. He knows the value of strength because he had none of it, and that's why he was chosen.
The serum amplifies everything that is inside, so good becomes great, bad becomes worse. This is why you were chosen, because the strong man who has known power all his life may lose respect for that power, but a weak man knows the value of strength.
The serum amplifies everything that is inside, so good becomes great, bad becomes worse. Steve wasn't just good when he was skinny and tiny, he was still great. He was ready to sacrifice himself to save others even when he wasn't enhanced. So if good becomes great, then great should become the greatest, and that's how Steve Rogers became the greatest soldier ever to have lived in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if that's not enough, think about how the movie ended. He sacrificed himself just after finding the love of his life. He lost 70 years so that others could live without any suffering. Speaking of which, this is what made him the man out of time. Imagine if you go to sleep and wake up 10 years later. We can't even explain the struggle you'll have to go through to adapt to the newer decade. Not to mention, by the time, some of your loved ones may not even be there. Now think about Steve. When he woke up, give or take 70 years later, he came from a time where he used to see cars and buildings like this. But now all of a sudden he has to merge himself in a society that looks like this. And not to forget, the love of his life is now a 90-year-old lady. Which brings me to the second part of the video, how Steve Rogers conquered time itself. In Endgame, we've seen him lift Thor's hammer and Stonebreaker. Mjolnir requires you to be worthy, and Stonebreaker requires you to have incredible amount of strength. But think about this, for a guy who has 70 years of his life go missing, what amount of good he must have had in his heart that he is worthy enough to both lift and summon Mjolnir. Thor has been alive for 1500 years plus the 5 years in Endgame, so he had plenty of time to become worthy and powerful. But despite missing most of his lifetime being frozen, Cap still remains worthy. And I can prove to you Cap has been worthy ever since he jumped on the grenade to save everybody else. If Cap didn't know he could lift Thor's hammer, he wouldn't have wasted time trying to do that in that moment. He has seconds left until Thor dies. He wouldn't waste those seconds trying to pick up the famously immovable hammer unless he already knew it was definitely an option. Another proof of Cap knowing all along that he is worthy is the writer-director of Age of Ultron, Joss Whedon. He confirmed in an interview back in 2015, saying Cap could actually lift the hammer if he wanted to.
How is Steve Rogers not worthy?
Is he not? Are we sure? Did he fail or did he stop?
Coming to the third part, Steve Rogers was the only Avenger to have cared for other Avengers on a personal level. He sees Black Widow flirting with Banner and tells him to move along without waiting.
What is?
You and Romanoff.
No, we haven't. That wasn't.
It's okay. Nobody's breaking any bylaws.
No, Natasha, she likes to flirt.
I've seen her flirt. Up close. As maybe the world's leading authority on waiting too long, don't. You both deserve a win.
He's the one who sees the romantic bond between Wanda and Vision.
We're not having this conversation.
Eliminating the stone is the only way to be certain.
He also asks Tony whereabouts of Pepper, because he genuinely feels happy for people who live with their loved ones. And he kept the truth from Tony about his parents because he didn't want to betray his best friend, which would ultimately cause Tony a lot of pain as well. So he decided to keep that to himself and live with it. And in Endgame, after Black Widow dies, Tony asks if she had any family. Steve replies,
Yeah. Us.
He not only considered the Avengers as his family, but also made sure everyone around fills it too. Because he never had a family of his own, so he tried to fill that void by taking care of others. Which brings me to my conclusion on how Captain America became the man of all time. All of the other Avengers have other motivations, but Steve is not driven by ego, arrogance, guilt, anger, fear, or self-interest. He just wants to do what is right. He's not afraid to stand up to bullies. The Avengers turn to him for battle plans. He leads them through in every attack, even when there's no one standing behind him. But if everyone happens to be standing behind him, they wait. They wait until the captain commands to strike.
Assemble.
So now you tell me, a man who sacrificed his personal desires, someone who stood up to the bad guys no matter what situation, how can a guy who lost 70 years of his life resist a do-over that can give him all the things that he has missed? How can he resist an opportunity where he can live, love, and laugh with the person he loves most? I don't think he can. I don't think he should. So I'm happy after all that Cap has done for humanity, the ending wasn't so cruel to him after all. He didn't just get what he deserved, he got more. Life gave him a reward for being so noble that one can only dream of. He not only got to live his missing 70 years, but he lived it knowing what's gonna happen next. So I leave you with this. Captain America is indeed out of time, but it's only because he has lived through all of time. And that's it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. I do hope you share this video with your friends who may need to know this, because in our hearts, Steve Rogers lives on. I'll see you lads in the next one.